My name's Tom Grice, and on behalf of my family and all the Grice Gun Shop employees and all your fellow gun owners, thank you for taking the time to attend this rally, to stay informed, to get involved, and make your voice be heard. Before we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to start by recognizing those who are currently serving in the military. Please stand up. Now all veterans that are with us here today, please stand. Thank you for your service. Keep standing, please. Sorry. Now I'd like all police officers, please stand. Woo! All firemen and first responders. Now if we can all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance in a short prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America. Please bow. Dear Lord and Creator, we give thanks today for the right to congregate and celebrate as law-abiding Americans our Second Amendment rights, as well as all of our constitutional rights our forefathers and you have so bountifully blessed us with. We thank you, Lord, for all your first responders, law enforcement, servicemen, and women protecting our country today, and for all the veterans who have served, fought, and died protecting these freedoms for us in this great country. Through Jesus we pray. Amen. Amen. Again, thank you. You may be seated. This is a fantastic turnout. This is the best ever. So hats off to you folks for being here, taking your time to be with us today. Thank you. Is there any other fellow deplorables here? It's great to be with several hundred like-minded people, I can tell you that. Good morning. Right here.
I'm not losing your cigar.
No. Last year I stated at this event, our fellow Pennsylvania firearms owners, you and I have managed to uphold the Second Amendment rights of our forefathers have graced us with. We now have the most pro-gun government we've had in decades. Thank you for getting the word out and making a difference and voting pro-gun. We have scored a victory, but we have not won. The fight will never end. Michael Bloomberg, George Soros, they're not broke, they're not deterred, they're working harder and in covert ways. Scores of anti-gun politicians still exist, and they're not happy. They're still out there, they're still coming after our Second Amendment rights, even stronger than before. Lately, former Supreme Court Justice Stevens wrote last week, the Second Amendment is outdated and obsolete, considering the available firearms at the time, today versus then. Therefore, he feels the Second Amendment should be repealed. That was in the news. In Massachusetts, a state judge single-handedly ruled this week that assault weapons can be banned in that state. TV shows, movies, Hollywood, they're all against us, but they all use guns in a lot of their shows. The mainstream media, you all know what they are. Some pro-gun politicians have flipped. Nobody up here. As Florida now has a 3-day waiting period on all guns. Many corporations are against firearms owners. Before you buy any products, please make sure that they are at least neutral on firearms. I strongly advise you frequently visit and read the NRA ILA news on their website to stay on top of all the anti-gun issues that we're facing. Citibank won't do business with anyone selling firearms any longer, so please cut up your Citibank cards. Delta, Budget, scores of other companies have terminated discount rates for NRA members. However, we had a Patriot stand up in Georgia, and Delta lost a $40 million fuel tax perk that was rescinded by the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia until they reinstate their NRA discount. Neither one have moved on that. BlackRock is a Wall Street firm, money manager, has removed funds from their portfolio offerings of companies because they sell firearms, like Walmart, Dick's, Kroger, Fred Meyer, LL Bean. And speaking of Walmart, Dick's, and Field & Stream, you all know that as soon as you turned 18, you had to go out and buy your own first gun. Well, forget doing that at those stores. It's 21 now for all guns and ammo purchases. I really don't care where you buy your guns and supplies. I just recommend, and please ask, you buy them from dealers that fully support all your Second Amendment rights. I've heard some gun owners say, they'll never come and take our guns. I said, you may be right. They may not come and take them, but really, who would want that job? But their plan is to make it impossible for you to buy one, and chipping away at little things like credit cards and age limits is what they're working on right now. We have a great panel of speakers here today, and due to time constraints, we'll only be discussing Second Amendment firearms issues. When we have a Q&A time, I respectfully request that if you have questions, you keep them to gun issues, as we simply do not have time to discuss other political topics at the moment. There is also one speaker whom is always here but cannot make it today. Matt Gobler is deployed and serving our country in the Middle East as a captain in the PA National Guard. Please give him a shout out on Facebook and let him know we missed him, and to thank him for his service. I know he'll be here next year. Today I'm sure we'll hear about several anti-gun bills, both state and federal. We'll hear why PA's state of emergency declaration regarding an opioid crisis, which we do have, but it does affect where you can and cannot carry a firearm. With that being said, it gives me great pleasure to have all of these pro-Second Amendment speakers here today. I thank you for your time and courtesy of being here today to support this. It's with great honor for me to have and to introduce to you a like-minded, common-sense, vigilant defender of our Second Amendment freedoms, who has and will always continue to stand and fight. Please give a big pro-gun welcome to Pennsylvania's 5th Congressional District United States Representative, Congressman G.T. Thompson.
Good morning, everyone. Tom, thank you so much for for you and your family. This is your event, putting this event on, and how many years have you been doing this now? It's
at least 5 or 6.
It's more than that. I've lost count, and thank you for the kind invitation to be a part of it. Just for clarification, I am the congressman for the Pennsylvania 5th Congressional District, but thanks to some liberal judges in Harrisburg, it'll soon be the Pennsylvania 15th Congressional District. But that said, I'm just very proud to represent the 5th and looking forward to representing the 15th. And wow, what a great turnout. You know, we've always, Tom, you've always remarked, I've always been very impressed with the turnout, all the years you've had this and invited me to attend. You've always kind of said, we can do better, we can do better. Well, Tom, you did better. Yeah, you got standing room only, and thank you for that. Thank you for coming out, to you and your family. Let's give the Grice family a big hand. You know, what a blessing to be in the company of so many great Americans who, quite frankly, love liberty and freedom. That's what this is about. This is about the wisdom of the founders who has been sustained for centuries, that put quill to paper and defined our basic liberties, our freedoms, our rights, and articulated where they came from. Came from God, not man. But provided a template that was used not only to make this country great and define us, but has been used as a model around the world by men and women living in chaos and violence and poverty, you know, who want something better. They look to our Constitution as a beacon, as a template to be able to be used. Tom, thanks for that prayer. Starting out, you know, surely a nation no longer under God will certainly go under. And so what a fitting way to start this morning. And I'm so excited to be accompanied with some great Americans who are going to be sharing their thoughts on the Second Amendment. And thank you again to all of our veterans in the audience. We owe you a debt that more than we can ever repay for your service and your sacrifice, and to your families, because I know when those folks who are serving today and have served in the past, your family served right along with you in different ways, but they sacrificed and they served. And with all the fire, EMS, and police personnel in the audience, thanks for keeping us safe here at home. Thanks for being a deterrent. You know, we sleep soundly at night knowing that you're on the job. Now, I believe in. I want to thank all of you, too. I want to thank all of you for helping to make America great again. It's because of your work. And there's a certain individual who works out of Washington, D.C. You may have heard of him, President Trump. And he has expressed to me more than once his appreciation to the people of Pennsylvania. It was the people of Pennsylvania and the people of our part of Pennsylvania that really put him over the top on election day, to be able to entrust to him and our vice president, who many of you know is a good friend of mine, was my mentor when I was first elected to go to Congress, somebody I did Bible study with, Vice President Mike Pence. And they're thankful. And we are in the middle of a great American comeback. I don't debate that based on motion and a myth, which is unfortunately what some people in Washington do, but it's on the facts. It's on the facts that unemployment is at a 49-year low, that consumer confidence is a 17-year high, that ISIS is on the run, the caliphate has been crushed, and we and our allies around the world actually see America as a force for good again, they've missed us. And when we've been weak and we have not been at our best, at our full strength, when we have not been great at our greatest, that has encouraged bullies and thugs and dictators and people that would do evil to do bad things to other human beings around the world. And so it's great to have America back. And I want to, the fact the first time in decades we see wages are rising. You know, we see new jobs being created. We're seeing folks at the end of the week or 2 week or whatever the pay period is, 90% of Americans with more money in their paychecks. And that didn't happen by accident. That happened because of your support. And that is greatly appreciated. Now, we all here believe in freedom and in protecting our Second Amendment that guarantees our citizens the right to own and bear arms. Our Second Amendment is this country's original homeland security, where this right is freely exercised without government infringement. Our citizens live in freedom with a deterrent and a defense to violent crimes. And we've seen examples around the world where Second Amendment rights have been stripped away. I serve as co-chair of the German American Caucus. Here's a little secret though, I'm not German. I do tell people I'm qualified to co-chair that caucus now, and I do co-chair the caucus because German descent is very prevalent in Pennsylvania. It's important to many Pennsylvania families, but it's important because of the trade partners, our shared concern, security concerns, trade, all kinds of education, different things. But I tell people I'm eminently qualified to co-chair the German American Caucus, but because I've been married to a wonderful woman and a great mom who's of German descent by a number of generations ago, I've been married to her for 37 years. And so I know how to negotiate with someone of German descent and lose graciously. I guess that qualifies me. But I've had some interesting opportunities where I sit down with members of the German Bundestag. That would be their Congress. And sometimes they challenge me on our Second Amendment about how we could have a Second Amendment. And I'll be honest with you, I just look at them and I smile and I said, are you serious? You're from Germany and you're challenging us on the Second Amendment? I don't want to recap some of your history of what happened when your Second Amendment rights were stripped away and all the evil that was done and how many millions of innocent lives that were taken as a result when citizens could not defend themselves or defend the vulnerable and the innocent. That debate doesn't go very far, actually. But it does come up from time to time. Sadly, our Second Amendment rights are under attack. The liberal far left they've finally made their intentions very clear. We've suspected that for some time, but I think the spokesperson, and Tom made reference to it, retired Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens recently made it abundantly clear when he called for the repeal of the Second Amendment. It's our duty to respect and defend the freedoms our Constitution guarantees.
There you go.
Benjamin Franklin, when he was leaving the hall where they had just finished the Declaration of Independence or one of the founding documents, actually, it might have been the Constitution, but he was stopped by reportedly, history says he was stopped by a young lady right outside the door, and she said to him, Dr. Franklin, what do we have? Do we have a monarchy or do we have a republic? And Dr. Franklin looked at her with the wisdom that he always seemed to muster from somewhere and said, we have a republic, madam, if you can defend it. And I think those words, I know he was speaking to her, so when we use the word you, he was speaking in the present tense to her, but I think with his wisdom of what Franklin has demonstrated, when he said you, I think he's talking to all of us too. It was President Reagan who said that freedom and independence is just one generation away from being lost. It's earned by the blood and the service of those like our American heroes, our veterans that are sitting here, or those like our American heroes, just like Representative Matt Gobler, who wears a uniform today in a foreign land. But it is up to all of us to sustain that liberty and freedom, that constitutional republic that we have today. I don't think the retired justice, though he's probably, I'm sure being a Supreme Court justice, he was a great man, but and a student of law, but I don't think he was a student of history. You look at a name that most people don't remember, because he was one of the vice presidents, but Elbridge Gerry, who was vice president under James Madison, wrote this: "Self-defense is a primary law of nature, which no subsequent law of society can abolish. This primary principle, the immediate gift of the Creator, obliges everyone to remonstrate against the stride of ambition, a wanton lust for domination, and to resist the first approaches of tyranny." Roger Sherman, who was a signer of he was a busy guy. He was a signer of the Declaration of the 1774 Continental Association, the 1776 Declaration of Independence, the 1781 Article of Confederation, and the Constitution of 1789. Offered this guidance on our Second Amendment rights. Sad will be the day when the American people forget their traditions and history and no longer remember the country they cherish and the freedoms they hope to preserve were born from the throes of armed resistance to tyranny and nursed in the rugged arms of fearless men. Pretty powerful words. You know, this attack on our Second Amendment is not the first time this has occurred. It's reoccurred over our history, even in the beginning, and and has its roots in the formation of our nation. The first time really was in 1774. King George III. He banned flintlock muskets to the colonists, citing that they were weapons of war, dangerous to society and government. I don't think that turned out real well for King George. There is lots of legislation in the process to really build on what the former Supreme Court Justice has declared that to support the repeal of the Second Amendment rights. A lot of legislation has been introduced. Legislation that would create registries, which is the first step to knowing where to pick them up, where to take them from. Expanding excessive waiting periods, requiring to own a firearm to require liability insurance, which, by the way, is a backdoor registry. If we know that if you have your liability insurance, we know exactly where you're exercising that right to own and bear arms. One, to strip away our Second Amendment rights, and Tom talked about this with some various dealers that have done this on their own, under the age of 21. When my son I'll tell you the truth, when my son turned 21, he was on a medical transport plane after being wounded in Iraq, and had been serving our country since he was 17 years old. And yet 18, which is an age that we deem for a right to vote, to strip away those constitutional rights on our 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds, there's been legislation introduced to do that, to restrict semi-automatics. I'm not sure how I'm going to do those sporting clays with a single barrel.
That'd be fast.
Yeah, I'm going to have to be real fast with sporting clays, I guess. If I can't use my over and under, not going to be able to buy one, not going to be able to own one if legislation like that is started. And it's not just at the federal level, and I don't want to. I know we got some great state representation here. I got a senator I'm real proud to co-represent today in Clearfield County, and now he's going to welcome me down south into his home county and in Cambria County, and of course Cris Dush is here and Tommy Sankey, but I just want, this is a project I've been involved in. You know, up to just a few days ago, the Wolf administration had full plans to bring in bulldozers and bulldoze the Phillipsburg Rod and Gun Club, which is this is a sporting club that is really where a lot of young people got their first experience of safe gun handling and being law-abiding safe gun handlers. And the Wolf administration had plans to bring in bulldozers. And I don't know how long that club's been open and going for, I want to say 100 years, for 100 years. And so we've got, obviously in Harrisburg, we've got threats. Now, I'm real proud to say that those who share with me that they just received an injunction from the courts to stop the Wolf administration for the time being on that. And I'll let others talk more about that. But these threats come from all directions, and they're mostly based on emotion and myth. And I see that every day when legislation is advanced based on emotion and myth. Nothing good happens for the American people. When we stick with science, we stick with the data, then we're able to provide good information, good leadership. I think to me there's a really ignoring the root causes of some of the issues we have today. I would start with the fact that we have this isn't a Second Amendment issue, this is a First Amendment issue. And we have some members of the First Amendment press here, and I appreciate them being here to help share information, share facts, share data. Under the First Amendment, we have perpetuated a culture of violence. We have our kids today that are, and it is First Amendment, there's nothing we can really do about that, but they're exposed to so much today in terms of video games, in terms of lyrics and music, in terms of the movies that are out there. And unfortunately, if they're not equipped with the right filters, they can, especially the ones that are very vulnerable. And I would say the ones that are very vulnerable is where, they're not getting that support, those filters in the family. I think in my opinion, we've had too much of a separation of church and families. That's a part of making good moral decisions. And a culture of violence is something that it's hard to, obviously it's hard to legislate that, but it's something that we all need to be working on, and we need to be attending to. We need to be talking about, because it's a culture of violence is one of the issues in certain parts of the countries and certain populations, cities, more high density, high poverty, concentrated poverty. Not that there isn't poverty in every zip code, but more concentrated poverty. We see more of the evidence of the problems that are created with that breakdown, that culture of violence that we had today, that I don't remember when I was growing up. We also have unmet behavioral health needs, and we recognize that because we see that in the perpetrator of many of the situations that I had the opportunity to sit down with 4 of the kids from Lakeland, Florida. They're in Washington. I took the opportunity to go and sit down with them. I felt so bad for those kids. I mean, I've been to Iraq, I've been to Afghanistan, I've seen some real ugly things, but I didn't have to see that in my high school. And that's a perfect example of a young man, a perpetrator, who had an unmet mental health need that was well documented, but unattended to, who was expelled from school, but not really getting the services. Now we on a federal level, we've stepped up. We recognize that is a chronic condition that needs to be addressed. We need to have the resources to deal with these mental health issues and do a better job of making sure we're providing services that are truly effective. And we have stepped up and are doing that now at the national level. Most recently, we did do legislation to make sure that our next system was fully funded. But we also are holding accountable all the partners. In the Lakeland, Florida situation, not a reason in the world with that young man's mental health history, which was well documented, and his violent history. I mean, he was on Facebook pictured aspiring to be a professional school shooter. I mean, and it seemed like everybody knew it. The FBI knew it. The local sheriff's department knew it. And nobody did anything. So I want to modify a saying that we've been using in our communities to fight terrorism. And it came out of New York City after 9/11. See something, say something. How about we add do something? Yeah. And that's what was missing in that situation and many of the other situations that we've seen that resulted on evil, unnecessary deaths, and in the end resulted in an attack on law-abiding citizens' Second Amendment rights, as opposed to really looking at the root cause of the problem and addressing those issues at that problem level. And so we did do some things with Fix Next to be able, that was the name of the legislation, and that passed about 2.5 weeks ago, to be able to do that, to hold our partners accountable, so that when information is out there and somebody really shouldn't be, is going to be in a position because of a criminal record or mental health issues and should not be able to purchase firearms, that system actually works. The system actually works. We also invested significant money in our schools. You know, we spend a lot of money every day, and we have some folks from law enforcement that are here today, and thank you for what you do. It's appreciated. And we fund our law enforcement in our communities because we want them, number one, to be a deterrent to bad things happening. Number two, when something bad happens, we want them to be a part of the response, to be there, to help, neutralize that situation, to first save lives, and then obviously protect property. And I can't think of, and we do that in all of our communities. I don't know of a community that doesn't have a presence, sometimes large, sometimes small, presence of law enforcement. And I can't think of a more precious community than, quite frankly, our schools, which have our most important resource we have. That's our next generation. And so I was very proud of the fact that we did with this bill increase funding for safe schools, money to be able to expand the presence of law enforcement, and please, let's stop calling them resource officers. Let's call them police officers. Let's call them law enforcement. Let's call them what they are. I don't want these individuals, these men or women, to be our kids' best friends. I want them to be a role model. I'd love our kids to look up to them, respect them. But I want them to have a presence there so that their physical presence in uniform, equipped, can deter acts of violence. And when bad things do happen, because you know what, life's that way. No matter how hard you plan, no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you pray sometimes, bad things happen. And I want these folks to be connected, whether it's a township or a borough or a city or a state police or a county or a sheriff's department. I want them to be connected so they're that incident commander when something bad happens. And they've got a team that they're reaching out to, and that team's coming, that team's responding during those emergencies. So that's my vision on how we work harder to keep our kids safer, because kids are not going to learn if they don't feel safe. Let's face it, they're going to be focused on that fear, and we can't allow that to continue, and we can't allow that to occur. And so I just wanted to share with you some of those things. Again, I look forward to kind of the Q&A part of this, but I'm so proud to be standing here with the folks behind me, and so proud. I always say, Tom, I'm always honored the first time I get invited out anywhere, and I'm surprised when I get invited back. So thanks for inviting me back, Tom. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, GT, for kind words.
And also taking your notes.
Uh-oh. I'm done with those.
Okay.
Okay. Next up, I don't have any real set agenda here, but we have a very pro-Second Amendment Clearfield County Sheriff and leader of the famous Sheriff's Posse of Clearfield County, Sheriff Michael Churner.
I join Gene in thanking Tom and Brenda and the whole family for giving us a forum to be here today. And it is an honor to be with the folks up front here with me, and it's an honor to be with you folks. And I got to say a special thank you for coming out today, Clearfield County Sheriff's Posse. Thank you for being here. It was about a year ago, we laughed and we joked and we had some fun about a certain thing. Hillary called us as deplorables, and we laughed about that. We had some fun, and she's since pulled back. We're only bullies right now, so shame on you guys for bullying your families to go out there and vote conservatively. But and I'll tell you why she did that. I have to say, I know I'm limited for time, but she and those like her and that whole thinking process did not think that we the people in this room and the folks like us, our Bible thumping, gun toting hillbillies, could have an effect on a national election, but we did. We had a huge effect. And it showed here in Clearfield County. But on a more serious note, I had to reflect on what's going on down in Florida with the Parkland school shooting. That's a horrible, horrible tragedy. And if you're not frustrated and aggravated when you see what some of those in government, the media, are doing with pushing their agenda for gun control, it should just infuriate us. It's sad enough that we see that, and we've seen the pushback from Columbine and Sandy Hook, and it's horrible. But we need to stop blaming the gun. It's the shooter. It's the person. You know, I've had a gun all my life. Never once, not one time did it ever pull its trigger. And I feel safe about leaving my guns at home. But they mentioned the retired Supreme Court Justice who's asking for recall of the Second Amendment. We have sitting senators out in the West who had defined the Constitution as an evolving document that needs to change with the times. And they're serious. And we're seeing children march. You know, folks, we are under attack. We're at war, and we need to take a stand. And I think our weapon of choice in defense of that is the ballot. We need to get out and vote. We need to continue this motion. It's what we've started. We need to get out there and vote. We got some good people, and I ask you to examine everything that you hear today. The Constitution is under attack, and I can tell you this. I've done some research, and if the Second Amendment falls, so does your Bill of Rights. I want to give you an example. Australia, the government there thought that they needed to get some of the guns off the hands of the people, and they needed to take some sort of a gun control measure. So what started as a gun buyback program ended up resulting in the seizure of over 700,000 firearms and cost $500 million. A year later, the numbers were in the statistics will tell you that the murder rate increased by 3.2%. Assaults increased by 8.6%. And here's the kicker. Armed robberies increased by 44% in Australia. You know why? Because the good guy had the guns. They give them up or they have them seized. So if we choose not to go to the polls, that's a vote for gun control, folks. We need to vote. I ask you to take your spouses, your family, anyone you know that's registered to vote, get them out there and vote. If you need a ride, give me a call. We'll make that happen. We need to vote. We need to get out there and vote. For me, when I have a need to protect my family, myself, the citizens of Clearfield County, it's 9mm. 911 will take too long. We don't have to resort to violence, folks, to defend our constitutional rights. We can do that with a pen or with the modern voting machines, but we can make a difference. And I ask you, please don't stay at home, don't not vote. This governor election is very critical. It may be the most important election we get to vote in many, many years to come. I ask you to examine what Mr. Mongo has to say, as well as Mr. Wagner, and from that, we're going to choose a Republican candidate to go out there and beat our current Governor Wolf. We can do it. It's time for him to go. He has set this state back. I don't know if I'll live long enough to see the recovery, but we're in trouble. We can't have another term with Governor Wolf. So we need to go vote. So I'm asking you, stand with me for the Second Amendment. Not let the government or anyone else start dismantling our Constitution. If we do nothing, this country will be something we don't recognize, and that won't be good for us, our children, and our grandchildren. We need to take a stand. So I ask you to get out there and vote. Listen to what these candidates have to say. And I know at times we like to vote with our heart because we're compassionate. We think about the school shootings and the tragedies and those poor folks down there. But we need to follow our conscience. We in this room recognize and know that the gun's not killing these people. It's the shooter. And Gina talked about that. They're going to take a look at how we can maybe address mental health. It's a big concern, and I know that that's a problem. But for this today, we need to make a difference and vote for the Second Amendment. So for me, I'm going to polls. I'm a pro-gun, and for my opinion, I'm going to vote pro-Constitution, and I'm going to vote pro-life. So. Lastly, again, in my opinion, we don't need less guns in America. We need more Jesus. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Sheriff. That was great. Very, very good words. Our next speaker is a local guy. He's as pro-gun as anybody in this room. Last year he had some flimsy excuse he couldn't be here, though, something like his wife was in labor or something. He didn't show up, but he's here this year, and he's our own super pro-gun PA state rep, Tommy Sankey.
All right. Good morning, Patriots. I can't even follow Sheriff Churner. You throw in more guns and more Jesus, that's a tough speech to follow. Let's be, I guess the simplest answer is no. That's where any gun laws are going in Pennsylvania. Nowhere. You know where we stand. And actually, the arrogance of legislators to think they're bigger than the system. The Second Amendment is older than every one of us. Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution is older and bigger than any of us. We serve for a blurb in time. Of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives is the oldest governing body in the United States of America. We're there for a small point in time. And for anybody to come in there and think they're so arrogant and they're so important that they're going to change the Constitution, rest assured, we're not that important. We're not going to let that happen. And as far as that goes, you know, I wasn't here last year. That's fair. I did have a kid. My wife did, so that's my excuse. And he just turned 1, so I knew the date was coming up. But my rights to defend myself, my family, and my property are not up for negotiation. I really don't care. That Second Amendment gives me the right to defend myself and defend my property, no matter what any politician says. I don't care. If you want to change the Constitution, then you need 2/3 of the states to ratify it. Well, good luck with that, because Pennsylvania is not going to be one of them. Thank you. And, you know, and I guess I don't want to hit on every issue, but I'm going to say it. You know, what happened in Parkland, what happened in any school shooting, that breaks anybody's heart. You know, I like everybody in this room, man, I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have been there to get a shot at him. Everybody else thinks that same thing, and I understand that, and it breaks my heart. But if we want to talk about problems, go talk to any elementary school teacher. The biggest problems they're having is with the parents. If parents start raising their kids, do like my dad did. You get your first BB gun, you get your first 22, you get your first shotgun, you get your first deer rifle, and you learn the importance of handling a firearm and know that it's a tool, and it is a weapon, and it's meant to kill. You use it for the right reasons. You use it to defend yourself. We need better parenting, and you know, we do have problems. I hate to think of anybody being unsafe at school, but we have 60,000 people in this country dying with a needle in their arm. We have 700,000 abortions in this country. We have more kids dying, texting and driving than we do getting shot. It's a shame. We have problems. The problem is not the Second Amendment. You know where we all stand. But as Sheriff Churner said, I urge you to get out to the ballot. I urge you to vote with your conscience, vote with your heart, and know what's best for Pennsylvania. This isn't just about us. This is about the future generations moving forward, and we can't let this liberal agenda continue to just spur the talking points that they have. We have to stand our ground, and after listening to Sheriff Churner, I do love living in Clearfield County, so I do. And we know where we stand. We know where our Commissioner John Sobel's here. We know where he stands. We know where our sheriff stands, and our law enforcement, our congressmen, our senators, our representatives. If anybody can get to it, April 30th, we're having a rally at the state capitol in Harrisburg, and anybody that can get there from Clearfield, we want to see you there. And as far as Dick's Sporting Goods goes, they're overpriced anyway, Tom. I don't buy anything there. So if you're going to buy a firearm, not that I'm pitching, but I suggest Tom Grice and Bob Grimminger have a great selection of firearms and ammo. So let's keep it local. Hell with Dick's. We'll buy it right here. God bless America. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. I'll get out of the way. You're good. Thank you. This is the third time around for me being here, and it's always a pleasure to be around Patriots. A retired Master Sergeant from the 193rd Special Operations Wing. I've got a son that's a pararescueman, and my niece's husband went through with him, and I just want to ask you to thank those guys and hold them in your prayers. Ryan's unit lost 4 of his buddies here a couple weeks ago in a helicopter crash over in Iraq, and my niece's husband, Andy, lost a couple in Syria. Those are the people who have taken that oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States seriously. Unfortunately, we've got a bunch of people in government at all different levels who refuse to do that. We've just recently had it with our state Supreme Court, where they decided that they could write legislation.
That's right. It happened.
And I'm going to ask you, because they're not going to stop with drawing new congressional district maps that impact people like Glenn Thompson. They're going to be, they've just done something with the education funding that's going to raise your taxes on your, they're going to take funding for the schools and decide where it's going to go. And they've made promises to Erie, Philadelphia, and other schools that it's going to be going there. They make campaign promises while they're running for justice on something that would come before the court. The Bar Association, the Pennsylvania Bar Association, should have chastised them from it and withdrawn their support. Instead, they kept it up. They're coming after your Second Amendment rights next. Because Judge Forador over here in Jefferson County, he was running on the Democratic ticket for Supreme Court. He went down to Bucks, Montgomery, Chester County. They had a list of 4 questions they were going to ask him. They only got to the first 2. Where are you on abortion and where are you on gun control? And after he said, I'm pro-life, said I'm against gun control, they said, you're not getting any money, just forget about it.
That's true.
I'll give you a little anecdotal story. John was down in West Philadelphia, and I'd worked down there as an insurance investigator for a number of years. And I'll tell you what, the folks in the inner city, they understand how bad gun control can be. You look at what's happening in Philadelphia. John was down there, his truck was running out of gas in West Philadelphia about 11 o'clock in the evening. And rough neighborhood. He pulls into the gas station, the card reader doesn't work on the gas pumps. He walks over to the store, tries to open up the door, it won't open. He looks over, bulletproof glass with a place to slide your credit card or cash under there. He goes over and throws some money underneath, turns around, and the judge isn't a small guy. I mean, he's about my height, and this big black guy comes up to him and he says, running for Supreme Court, huh? Judge says, yes, I am. He said, got one question for you. Where are you on gun control? Judge says, I own 67 of them. Well, that's not what I asked you. What do you think about me owning them? And John says, well, I think you have the right to defend yourself. He said, I got this big ham fist shoved in my chest saying, he won't repeat the words, but he says, doggone right. He said, if those thugs can have them, I ought to be able to defend myself and my family. The reason the judge told me about that is because I'd worked, like I said, as an insurance investigator down there for a number of years. And we've got a lot more in common with some of those folks than you'd believe. They're trapped in their communities. And the judge and I had, before he was judge, we'd had some serious discussions about this sitting around a campfire. And he had to tell me the story when he came back, because I'd also talked about now Congressman Dwight Evans was a state representative down there back in '97 when the NRA had its convention. I happened to be working for the prison over here at Houtzdale, but I'd gone down to help open up Chester. The NRA convention, well, Dwight, I'm listening to the FM talker down there, and Dwight was organizing an anti-gun rally at the Harold O. Davis Baptist Church up in North Philadelphia to organize a bunch of protesters come down and protest. I'm like, I know that neighborhood. I know exactly why he's holding it there. He doesn't think somebody like me is going to show up, and I red flannel shirt and all, I'm there. Made sure I was the last person to get up and talk. I had his constituents saying, amen and tell it, brothers. I've destroyed an hour and a half worth of his work, and he's doing this trying to get me to shut up. Don Giordano had somebody from the NRA on at the time, and on the FM talker as I was going back down to the hotel. I got on, and I blasted those guys. I said, listen, I told them exactly where I was coming from and what happened. You guys need to get into the inner cities and start videotaping and talking to people in there because they know they're defenseless. Well, to their credit, the NRA did it in the south side of Chicago. They didn't do it in Philadelphia, but they actually have a video out there that you can look at that they produced. They went into the south side of Chicago and they did that. Our message wins where people feel threatened. You know, our founders were very wise.
Yes.
Our Constitution in Pennsylvania was set up specifically with what is a judicial doctrine called first principles. If there's a question down here in your document, refer up to the top, because the thing on top wins. How many in here think that God's unconstitutional to be talking about in government and in schools? I didn't think so. I go into a school and I ask that question, I get a lot of hands going up. We, the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of civil and religious liberty, and humbly invoking His guidance, do hereby ordain and establish this Constitution. That's the opening line of the Pennsylvania Constitution. He is the ultimate sovereign in this state. Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution is even more strongly worded than the Second Amendment. The right of the people to keep and bear arms in defense of themselves and the Commonwealth shall not be questioned. Shall not be questioned. When we have laws in Philadelphia and other places that restrict those rights, they're questioning us. They do not have the right. We are working on preemption laws to prevent that from ever happening, so that when you go to Philadelphia or any other city in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, if you got a concealed carry permit, if you're carrying open carry, they don't have the right to question you about your weapon. Wow. I happen to be the person, Don Oberlander over in Clarion County used to have the bill, I've got it now, to give the schools the option of allowing staff members to get trained through the municipal police officer training course or a similar course to be able to carry within the schools. I'd love to have the janitors because nobody ever knows where they are. So, but it's an option. I mean, it's not the answer. I'll tell you what, the first thing, law enforcement, security background, corrections, I'm on an Air Force Facebook page with a bunch of retired law enforcement and security forces from the Air Force. The very first post after Parkland was, when seconds count, the police are minutes away. We in the law enforcement community know that. As the sheriff said, when your life's on the line, 9mm is better than 911.
That's right. It's true. It's true.
The law enforcement community recognizes that. When I grew up, we had, you talk about guns in school. Depending on which hunting season was, my old International Scout had either 2 rifles or 2 shotguns in there because my brother and I were hit in the woods as soon as school was done. In 7th and 8th grade in leather shop, we were bringing the guns into the school for the slings to get mounted for our weapons that we created, the slings that we did in leather shop. What's died is common sense in this Commonwealth. What has really hurt us more than anything is that we've taken God out of our schools.
That's
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Our children are in these electronic leashes constantly. Their lives are now in a box. I've got another piece of legislation that will make it mandatory that every institution of higher learning in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that receives state money will have the preamble of the Pennsylvania Constitution inside a door. When those kids are coming in, because they're not supposed to have these things, they walk through that door. I want that right in front of them. They have got to understand there's something higher than themselves and more important than this box. I want to leave you with just one thing. The 2016 election. Each one of us in the representative district serve about 63,000 people. I went in and I looked at the representative districts from our region of Pennsylvania. The typical turnout was about 25 to 26,000 people. What's really bad is that in Chester, Bucks, Montgomery County, it was 36,000. We have the same number of constituents in the representative districts. We set a record in my district. It went from 23,000 normally to 26. If we would show up, we could trump Philadelphia, pun intended, over and over and over again if we would just show up at the polls. These judges that just got elected in November of 2017 overstepped the Constitution. They did. They've overwritten the Constitution. You know, the sovereigns in Pennsylvania are clearly defined at the, like I said, first principles. God, the Bill of Rights is the Bill of Rights of the people, not the government. That's you guys. You are the next sovereign. Then the legislature are the ones that, the sovereigns are the ones who write the laws. Article 3 is the law in Pennsylvania. The executive and the judiciary are under the law, both in form and in principle. And it's supposed to stay that way. They do not have the authority to write law. They wrote law without those congressional maps. FOAC has got a thing out to try and get people to call their legislators around the state. You need to talk to your friends and family around the state. We have to get these justices impeached, all four of them.
Impeach them.
The legislature needs to grow a set. We need to put the pressure on the leadership. Let's look, show up at the polls. Get every one of you. I'm going to give you this challenge. Go to the courthouse or download it off the internet, but get voter registration forms and have them in your possession at all times. We need to start showing up. We need people registered, and we need them to show up. If we don't, we're going to have judges writing law in the Commonwealth.
That's right.
And we need to show up even for judicial elections, not just for when it's somebody like Trump. We have to show up for them all.
Yep.
God bless you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is a lifelong resident of Cambria County, was elected to the Pennsylvania Senate in November 2016. Was a assistant district attorney, has served as lead prosecutor in Cambria County Drug Task Force, where he maintained an unblemished 100% felony trial conviction. He earned his reputation as being tough on violent offenders, compassionate toward crime victims, and dedicated to teaching our children the danger of drugs and alcohol. Let me introduce to you our Pennsylvania State Senator, Wayne Langerholc.
That's the deadline.
Well, good afternoon. We just passed in the afternoon hour. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here with you. And what a difference. What a difference we have from last year. What a difference in the times. And I'm here to tell you that I support God and I support guns. And I'm a proud member of the NRA, and I'm so proud to stand with you, the great people of Clearfield County. And it's not an easy time. And you see it, we're under attack. And every one of these speakers that talked and said the same thing, I'll echo those sentiments. It's not easy. It's not politically correct. You know, everybody's constantly attacking you. Why do you need guns? Why do you need this? Why do we need the Second Amendment? Every day it seems like you pick up the newspaper and there's a different headline. Anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment. Most recently, the Supreme Court Justice saying we need to repeal the Second Amendment. We do that, good luck. Good luck. It's a critical time, and we need to get the word out. We need to continue to register more people to vote. We need to pass down our tradition. We need to tell our youngsters, those that are becoming of voting age, the importance of the Second Amendment. You know, what does the Second Amendment mean? As was said, the Pennsylvania Constitution is even more. The rights of the people to bear arms shall not be questioned. Period. You're right. And so I've been in the Capitol now for a little over a year and a couple months, and you'll have people that will come to you and they'll ask you about, gun control, and I'll tell them I'm pro-life, I'm pro-gun. It's that simple. I'm pro-Second Amendment. And then you encourage debate. Well, why do you need guns? One time I had somebody ask me, do you think that you should be able to own 100 guns? I said, hell yeah. Well, why? Why should you be able to? I said, no, you're missing the point. It's not the amount. Why should the government tell me what I can or cannot own? It's that simple. The same thing when people, well, you don't need that. You don't need that gun to hunt. Not the point. You're totally missing the point. Second Amendment doesn't say the right to bear arms so you can hunt squirrels, right? What's it for? What's the root cause? People don't get that. They latch on to these talking points or these buzzwords, and they think that they know, everything about the issue. And I see that. That's one of my biggest, gripes since I've been in Harrisburg. You have different people for different causes that come in, and then they really start to talk. They get like a list of bullet points, and they say, "Get on and talk to your legislator." I say, "I welcome into my office. Come on in. Let's go. I want to know if you know everything about the issue." Because 9 times out of 10 they don't. You start asking them what the question is beyond these bullet points, they have no clue. Happens all the time. I was reading an article not too long ago about the origins of Pennsylvania and with the militia, and why this guy laid out this argument that the Second Amendment and the right for the people to bear arms really was out of the pacifist Quaker mentality. That Pennsylvania wasn't really helping the residents at the time. There's a French and Indian War, and they had to worry about Indians coming across the border into Penn's Woods and attacking people's settlements and everything. So the people started this, we need the right to bear arms. And his argument was, well, that's, it was because the government wouldn't help with the militia, so they needed to do it themselves. So that's why this is an outdated document. It's not that way anymore. No. Again, you're missing the point. Why do we need the Second Amendment? What is it for? To protect us, right? To protect us from what? The government, right. What's the government run that's been effective? Nothing. Really? National debt? That's good. Right. Exactly. We need the Second Amendment to protect ourselves, and it's the whole point. Well, those guns weren't in existence whenever it was drafted. True. And if you're going to argue that the Constitution is an evolving document, then the rights and the types of the guns should evolve right with it, because we need to protect ourselves from the government. And it always shocks me too. There's so much. It's like since we won this election back in 2016, it's like every possible barrage you can have, we're under attack.
That's right.
And I'm always curious that if these people are so worried about Trump or about our government and, this is just the agenda, why wouldn't they understand what the Second Amendment's for? Think about it. They're so worried about the new administration taking away their rights or doing things and they don't have any voice in it. Well, that's what the Second Amendment's rooted in. They're missing the whole point. So I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to represent Clearfield County. You're great people. I learned that very early on in my campaign. Honest, down to earth, salt of the earth, great people. I've got some legislation I talked to you about last year when I was here, Senate Bill 5, and it's on the firearm FOAC sheet that came in here, the preemption. And at that time, I don't think that it was in committee or what, but I'm proud to tell you that it is out of committee, it's out of the Senate, and it's over in the House. So we need to keep, but we're not there yet. But it's, yeah, thank you. And that's the bill that deals with preemption. And it's really a bill that we shouldn't have to be talking about, because it's clear that the right to restrict is within the state. And there's certain things, certain places where if the General Assembly says you can't carry, a weapon in like a courthouse or different things, that's where it comes from. You're elected representatives. But what's happening is, particularly down east, you have people or councils that are establishing ordinances or codes saying you can't have a gun, you can't carry a gun in a public park or what have you. And what's happening is you'll have people, and I used this example last time that I talked to you last year. If you have, I think I asked how many people have a concealed carry. I should have asked how many people don't have a concealed carry. Nobody would have raised their hands. But if you go and you travel out of state, what do? I do it. When we take a trip with my family, I check, what states have the reciprocity laws. You don't want to go through Maryland. You got to unclip everything, so you go through. West Virginia's good. You get into Virginia, all that, you drive. Same thing's happening in Pennsylvania. So you and I have a concealed carry. If I'm driving down into some of these places down in Philadelphia, they have these ordinances or these codes that say you can't have a weapon. You can get cited for it. Your right to carry, the state's telling you have a concealed carry, but there's some council or borough that says you can't. And what's happening is, people, if they're traveling, then they fight it and you can win, but what's going to happen? You're going to have to take time off work, get an attorney, travel, lose time, and spend money on something that is your right to do. So Senate Bill 5, what it does is it gives you the right, it gives organizations the right to sue on your behalf as well as recover some of the legal fees that you have. So basically what it is it'll put the impetus on the people to not have those ordinances. And that was a question that came out of committee when I asked it from somebody down east. Well, if you have this, why should we have this? We're not going to enforce it. Well, that's the whole point. You don't need to have it. That's not your right to do it. So we're going to continue that fight and continue to work towards getting that run and get that before the governor. This governor, I don't think, call me crazy, but I don't think he would sign that bill. I don't know. So that's why this election is so important. Also, I'm very pleased to announce that I've been appointed by Senate Majority Leader Jake Corman, along with Senator Mike Regan, to lead the talk and the action on school safety reform. So we've started that. And I was honored to be asked by Senator Corman. Senator Regan's a former U.S. Marshal. He felt his background and being a U.S. Marshal, my background being Assistant District Attorney, we had the knowledge and experience, and I really thank him for that. And we've been doing that, and that's been, I just invited all the superintendents from the district, from Clearfield, Cambria, Bedford County, and we just had a meeting Wednesday to talk about this. And I said, you're the ones that see it every day. What do we need to do? And the number one thing was mental health component. So we're going to continue to work towards that. That, along with, maybe some more armed guards. Nobody's talking about taking guns away to solve this epidemic. But it's It's crazy. It's out there, and it's not far away. I mean, you have already, in the wake of this, you've had some crazy co-sponsorship memos come before my desk from the other side. One thing was, if you're going to buy a gun, you have to have a full psychological test and the results done, and then given to the gun. Yeah. I mean, that's not going to go anywhere. Don't worry about that. But I mean, it's out there. I'm just telling you that to illustrate the craziness that some people are going to very far extremes. So keep fighting the good fight. Register to vote. It's so important. I have 3 daughters, and I fear what's going to happen here in 10, 15, 20 years as some of this mentality, as it starts to come up. We're in a battle here, and it's so important to register to vote, to get that. Don't apologize. Don't ever apologize for what you believe in. There's a reason that this Constitution stood the test of time, because it works. And I'm not going to apologize for it, and I know that you're not going to apologize for it. So let's get out there to vote. And I just got this from Tim. Register to vote, votespa.gov. The deadline for this primary is April 16th, so that's fast approaching. But keep fighting the good fight. Great to be here with you all, and God bless.